Valley, hooey Hollywood, where any office boy or young...
Welcome in and welcome back, everybody, to another episode of That Movie Show. Mike Wendt and Eddie McCabe back with you here. We took a little bit of a holiday break, got over the New Year hump, and now we're back in full form. Eddie, how you doing?
New year, new me, Mike. New
Bullshit.
year, new me.
Bullshit.
Yeah, 2021, back with a vengeance.
Seriously.
Like we all joked that, like, you know, if you're on like TikTok or like Twitch or you know, any of those social medias, that like the countdown will happen on New Year's Eve, and then all of a sudden the Mortal Kombat voice will just come over. Round 2, fight. And lo and behold, that's exactly what fucking happened.
Yeah, I am all set. I need a break from historical moments. Can we stop making these? Can we just can we have a week where nothing happens? You know what I mean?
The worst.
I just you know, for a year that's gone by where we really haven't left the house, for lack of a better term, too much stuff has gone on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's bad enough we can't really leave our houses or really, you know, socialize with people. Do we really need to be creating history every goddamn day?
Yeah,
not
the most recent one is the president got impeached for the second time. Not only is that historic, but the fact that somehow this asshole managed to get impeached twice in one term.
Twice
in one term.
I saw that. I forgot about the first one. By the way, we're doing Avengers Age of Ultron. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But yeah, I saw that on the news, and all of a sudden I saw the banner, and it says for the second time. And I'm like, wait a minute, that did happen. So I texted some of my friends, because I'm not a political person, so I don't know all the rules.
Right. Yeah.
So
I'm also not going to pretend that I read a historical document just to seem like a smartass on the internet.
Yeah. In all honesty, I really don't care. It bores the shit out of me, politics. But a few of my friends are political people. They actually do their research and talk about it and blah, blah, blah. So I kind of reached out. I'm like, so this thing says he was impeached for a second time. How many times do you get? How many chances do you get? Because I thought it was one and done. Yeah. And he kind of explained, it's like, oh, well, it's, again, I always go back to that episode of Always Sunny in Philadelphia. What are the rules? What are the rules?
Yeah, right.
It's like, what are the fucking rules, man? How many times can we do this? I mean, granted, he only has, 10 days left or some shit? So
he's got 10 days. It's just,
who cares?
Are we just going to go through the motions? I don't know. It's like
the party's completely over. Everyone's left. The last person's walking out, and you're like, yeah, get out. It's like he was already leaving.
He's already leaving,
dude. Don't bow up now. You had 4 years for your moment.
I do think that one of my favorite things has been seeing all of the social media posts of the people that stormed into the Capitol and then live streamed their, sedition live on the internet. And then we're all surprised when they started getting kicked off of flights.
Influencers were running wild, huh?
It was.
I
really
couldn't tell if it was a fucking invasion of 80s wrestlers or everyone just trying to get Instagram likes, but holy shit, that was a weird day.
Yeah, it was really funny though, because the internet is undefeated, and watching these people create these videos where it's somebody in the Capitol and then their mugshot set to the Pokemon Gotta Catch 'Em All theme is the funniest thing in the fucking world.
Wonderful.
Just holy crap. Oh, that's some funny shit right there. That is some funny shit.
The funny part was, it's last when was it? Last Wednesday? It feels like a year ago.
Oh, it's been a year this week.
And I remember because it was I was just finishing up doing something on the computer, and I was about to go make dinner, and I made the dumbass mistake of just being all right, let me see, because somebody posted a picture on Facebook as I'm scrolling, doing my last scroll before heading to the kitchen, and I see the guy with the horns standing there with the flag, and I'm
QAnon shaman,
and I'm like, dude, I have to see what the fuck is going on. That is too weird and too wild to not look. And I was stuck to my goddamn chair for the next 2 hours. I didn't even have dinner that night. I'm just I just wanted to make dinner. Just wanted to go make a burger.
I put this out on Twitter today. Being hey, can somebody please explain to me the QAnon stuff? I don't want to Google it. because I feel like if I Google it at this point, I'm going to end up on a list, and I'm really just curious.
That was like me with my Parler post last week.
Right.
Like,
and
I don't care enough to Google it, and honestly, I don't want to. So you all tell me what this is about.
Yeah, again, if I Google QAnon at this point, I'm going on an FBI watch list. And
Sure.
And look, I got a lot of weird shit going on in my life. I definitely don't need, FBI most wanted on top of that.
All of a sudden, that green light keeps popping on your camera. Why is that on right now?
Why is that on? So I don't need that. But it has piqued my curiosity because for the entirety of 2021, I've spent it watching cult documentaries.
Oh, shit.
I've spent it watching cult documentaries, which is very appropriate for everything that's happened in this past year and a half week that we've had.
So you're an expert.
So I'm an expert.
Okay.
But it's just like, it's so fucking fascinating because, so like, we'll talk about the things that I watched in a second because
Sure.
those in and of themselves are fascinating.
Sure.
But one of the things that they talk about is how like these cults like take otherwise like normal functioning adults and like make them crazy people. And that's what we watched with QAnon. And I just want to know, like, look, I watched an entire documentary series on people that believed that they were like vessels and spirits and needed to like board a spaceship behind a comet at some point. Right. So like, what the fuck could you believe in? And so
one of the streaming services either did or is going to do the big one, like the cult everybody points to, the Kool-Aid and the sneaker one. Heaven's Gate?
Those are two different ones.
Oh,
I know
me.
because I watched them.
Okay.
So the sneakers and the one that with the comet it's on HBO Max. They have a bunch of really great ones.
Yep.
So if you're into cult documentaries, watch them.
Yep.
And it's the Heaven's Gate cult.
Okay.
And basically it started in the 70s. They were these two people that believed that, like, kind of in the way that Scientology is, like, we're spirits and like our spirits need to be pure to like go off into space to sure. be in heaven, like, but basically ultimately it's their entire journey and how they like became these weird androgynous people and then they killed themselves because the Hale-Bopp comet was coming by in the mid-90s.
I remember that word.
And basically some idiots were like, there's a ship traveling behind the Hale-Bopp comet. And these assholes were like, that's our dead leader that like died like 5 years ago. She came to pick us up. So we all got to go to this mansion, dress up in Nikes and fucking murder ourselves. And so
that was one. The Kool-Aid one?
No, the Kool-Aid one, because what happened was I'm watching this one and they're like, yes, this was the largest mass suicide in the United States. Okay. And it was second only to Jonestown. And I'm like, what the fuck is Jonestown? Yeah. And Jonestown is bananas because it was this crazy pastor who started a church in like Missouri or maybe Indiana, but basically moved to San Francisco because he started catching heat from the government. So he moved to San Francisco and started a crazy church. Then basically told all of his followers, like, hey, asshole, get a passport and get on this fucking bus. So they got on that fucking bus with a passport and he flew them to Guyana, South America. And for those of you who have no idea where that is, that's one of the countries right above Brazil. And so they explained it that it was like 24 hours over the ocean to get to Guyana, then another 2-hour plane ride, and then a 2-hour bus to
that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. It was.
I mean, Brazil is less than that. Like, how did it take that long to fly there?
Oh, because it was the 70s.
Oh!
Because it was the 70s.
Fair fucks. All right, move on. So I'm like, that's like a 3-hour flight. I don't know what the fuck anybody's talking about. Yeah. Because it was a prop plane. I gotcha. It was a prop
plane that we were in. Casablanca had just like wrapped up outside of this plane. So basically,
Jock had just picked up Indy, and they were flying fucking 40 hours.
Yeah, right. We couldn't travel by map in those days. You see. And so basically he ends up having this like plantation that was supposed to be this like utopian society, but basically he just set himself up to have just slaves and in the middle of Guyana. So then the senator from the senator from San Francisco came down, who was like, I gotta see what's going on here, because like these people just like disappeared to South America, like, and so they're traveling around, everything seems fine, and then they're about to leave, and everybody's just like, please take me with you, please take me with you. So he's like, okay, and he takes a bunch of people with him. They all go to the airport. Jones, I forget the guy's first name, but Jones goes bananas and is just like, I need you to murder all of those people. And so he sends his firing squad to basically try to murder all these people at the airport when they're trying to leave. And so the U.S. government was like, oh, well, we got to do fucking something. So basically, in the meantime, Jones goes and gets Kool-Aid. It's laced with cyanide, forces everybody to drink it, and like just starts injecting people with cyanide and just basically murdered 900 people. So that was the Jonestown Camp. Fun. And so I watched that one as well. And then one of the big ones, and this one is the most recent one, it's also on HBO Max, and it's called The Vow.
Okay.
And The Vow is a multi-level marketing scheme that turned into a sex cult.
All right.
So it's this multi-level marketing company, and their whole thing is they like teach you like self-help, like marketing stuff. And it, it's multi-level. So it's like, well, I'll take the course and then I can become a teacher, and then I teach the courses, and I have you sign up for the course, but then I have you sign up to teach the courses. It's like, it's
we
nonsense.
have timeshares available in Arizona. Little do you know, you're moving into Fuck City.
Yeah. So basically it all heads up to this one guy that they just like fawn over, and he's just this gross like man. Sure. But he's super duper gross, and they like think that he's this absolute genius and he's gonna like save the world and all this stuff. And they have all of this high definition beautiful footage because one of the guys that was like in charge of their marketing that he like sucked into this cult was like an Academy Award nominated documentary director. And so he taught everybody how to use cameras and stuff, and then was shooting a bunch of stuff. So there's just all this beautiful footage and everything's documented and all this stuff. But in the meantime, they took these girls and basically turned them into sex slaves to have sex with this guy, and like branded them and shit. Like, and so it was nuts. And so like one of the girls that was like really high up in the organization was in Smallville. Her name was Allison Mack.
Now, this sounds very much like, and I only watched like the first season. This sounds like the origin story for Kimmy Schmidt.
Sort of.
Do you remember? It was like, because John Hamm was like the leader, and he had like a bunch of women in a bunker or something like that, and they were his wives or some shit or whatever they were.
Yeah, it feels like it felt like a BDSM like dynamic relationship that was just non-consensual is really what it was. And it was even the sex slave had a multi-level marketing hierarchy. like the one girl who's like the main girl in the Vow documentary, like,
you work really hard, you'll be able to ascend to level 2 sex slave.
Yeah, well, that was the thing, is that like your whole thing
by the time you hit level 4, we take the ball gag out.
Yeah, it's like it was just this weird. It was so weird and so fascinating. And one of the girls, like the documentary guy, his wife is she was in one of the prequel Star Wars.
Sure.
She was Aunt Beru.
Okay. Oh yeah.
So she did that, and then like her career kind of petered off, and then she joined this cult. And
after she was an actress, she joined the cult.
Yeah, so that was the thing, is that there were a ton of actresses. You know that like Hawaiian Asian girl? I don't know which ethnicity she is, so I'm going to say Hawaiian Asian, because she was in Hawaii Five-0 and Battlestar Galactica. And
I mean, so, I don't, but I didn't watch either of those shows. What was this cult called?
It was NXIVM, and it's like NXVIM.
Yeah, I doubt I spelled that right. Okay. Multi-level marketing company.
Yeah.
Read further, Mike. Was an American sex trafficking cult that claimed to be a multi-level marketing company based in Clifton Park, New York, a suburb of Albany.
Yeah, and they all love to play volleyball.
Jesus Christ.
It was very weird. But
this is what you spent the last few weeks doing?
Yeah, and then I watched all the Star Wars movies because the chick from The Vow was in the Star Wars movies. So I watched all the Star Wars movies. I started Tacoma FD.
With the Super Troopers guys. That's a really funny show.
Guys.
Yeah,
super funny show.
Super funny show.
As a palate cleanser, and then I watched Age of Ultron, and now I'm gonna watch all the Marvel movies.
Amazing! Like I felt the same way watching Ultron today. I was like, I'm watching it, being like, all right, well, because we're doing Age of Ultron because it's obviously the movie that debuted not only Scarlet Witch but also Vision, and WandaVision is hitting Disney Plus this Friday, today, whenever this is dropping, whatever day it is.
Yes, day tomorrow,
the 15th. It hit Disney Plus, at least the first 2 episodes, and then I'm watching it and I'm like, I have to watch the rest of them now.
Yeah,
well, it's because all of a sudden these characters, because I haven't rewatched the older Marvel movies in so friggin' long. Like I've rewatched Endgame and Infinity War a bunch in the last few years, but it's like, oh yeah, and we'll get a lot more into it obviously once we start the review, but yeah, it's like it's better than I remember. I think it cut a lot of shit.
It did catch a lot of shit, and it's funny because. And I, sitting there thinking about it, and I remember talking about it like when I was rewatching all of them leading up to Endgame.
Right.
Was phase one. There it was. We just have to get to the Avengers movie.
Right.
And we don't know what else we're doing after that, but we're doing all these setups, and then we're gonna do the Avengers. And then because that was this huge success, then it was like, oh no, like we're going to like. Plan to Endgame. Like Endgame is the plan. And like having watched all of these movies again and again and over and all this other stuff, I'm sitting here watching Age of Ultron because it was skippable. Like I remember it being good. I remember enjoying it, but I remember going out of the theater being like, oh man, it wasn't quite as good as the original Avengers.
Right. Nor was, and it was definitely one of those that we'll get into it in a minute. Because I feel like we're just going to start. Is there any more cult talk before we get going?
I think that's it. I think that's. I mean, unless you want to talk about my Disney fandom, and
that's a whole
that's a whole different cult.
Look, me and you, Disney fans, obviously, we've made no secrets about that. But man, sometimes when you're a fan of something, and there's the fandom part of it. Sometimes you're just like, I don't want to be associated with certain people.
Yeah.
And I mean, we have that in common between not only we're going to talk about in a second Disney, but pro wrestling is another one that sometimes you're just like, I just wish I wasn't associated with you people.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? But
I built my entire Twitter fan base off of wrestling, and it's just like, I want nothing to do with you people.
And so this week, coming out of Walt Disney World, I guess the big announcement was in 2022 they're going to stop the Magical Express, which for those of you who don't know is the complimentary bus service from the Orlando airport to the resorts at Walt Disney World. Now I read that and I'm like, that sucks, because for me it was like convenient. Convenience was very low on my list of why it was a bummer. For me, it was like that was the official first sign I'm in Disney now.
Yes.
You step off the plane, you leave the Orlando airport, and there's the line of buses lined up right outside the baggage claim or wherever it is. And you get in, and the second you sit down in your seat on that bus, and again, it's a bus. It's just a bus.
It's a Mears bus.
It's just a bus. It's no different than a Greyhound that you would take from New York to Boston or whatever. It's a bus. But the second you sit down, you're in the Disney bubble. They have screens playing the welcoming videos and the packages, and sometimes they throw the cartoons up there, the old ones. So it was like, okay, they put you into that mood, and because you're on that bus, it means you're staying on property, which means it takes literally when you leave that door, leaving the airport onto that bus, you never leave Disney for the rest of your trip, and it's nice. It's a nice feeling. It's a nice way to start a trip.
I talked about it, so I've been going live on Twitter every Tuesday and Thursday at noon. So go and check those out because that's what I'll be doing. But I talked about it because I talked about the Magical Express, and I knew we were going to talk about it here. So I'm going to reiterate a couple of those points. But it was very much like the way I've always felt is from the moment I get to Logan Airport in Boston to the moment I come back to Logan Airport in Boston, I'm like, it's Disney time because I don't have to worry about anything. I get on my plane. Once I get to my plane, I get on that bus. I don't even have to touch my bags
if you don't want to.
If you don't want to. Obviously, they're not doing that now because COVID. But
I was always somebody that like because that was another thing that I saw a lot of people bitching about on Facebook was how am I going to like it became very like first world problems.
World.
Like, 1% problems. Like how am I going to get my bags to my resort? It's like first of all, I've always been somebody because I don't like waiting for my luggage. So, and because, I dress extremely like sweats and flip flops when I'm on the plane, like extremely comfortable, but when I get to the hotel, I want to change clothes if I'm going to dinner or whatever. And the last thing I would want is, and normally, the service is very quick and prompt, but the worst case scenario, you could be waiting a couple hours for your luggage. And I don't want to be in like my scrubby flying clothes when I want to be going to dinner. So I was always somebody who just kept my shit with me. It's like, I usually only pack no more than one bag anyway. So it was like, I'm good. I don't need the baggage service. But that was one of those things that I'm like, I'm reading it was a really common problem for people.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like, look, it was a nice complimentary thing, but I've traveled enough to Disney that it's just like sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. Like, it just
I got
kind
it because
of
it was offered. And again, it's like it's super easy because you get off the plane at that terminal and the buses are right there. I don't have to go to the ride share. I don't have to go looking for an Uber. I don't have to think about it. It's like that they do the thinking for you, and you get dropped off at your resort. And it's like okay, easy peasy. And sometimes the buses take a while because they have to go to resort to resort to resort, but who gives a shit? You're at Disney. You know what I mean?
And the funny thing is like for people, and a big thing that is in the Walt Disney fandom is quoting Walt. And like I don't think that some of these people actually like pay attention to like what he said, because it's like the reason I believe, and I was talking to Bill Neville of a couple of park hoppers. We got to go to the Kowloon because they're closing, and that's sad. But sort of,
in 10 years.
Yeah,
maybe.
Sort of. It's gotten blown out of proportion. I've talked to people.
They instantly get some fucking web traffic, didn't they? It was like that story broke. Everybody did the same thing. I know I did. You did. Everybody did. Yeah. We posted the picture because Jesus, we grew up going there. It was it is an institution on Route 1, and and then it's like 20 minutes later. They post their response being like, look.
Yeah, we were just inquiring about shit. Like, what are you talking
about? Whatever we're doing might take 8 years.
Yeah, right.
Oh. So I might be like almost 50 when that happens. So cool.
But one of the things that they talked about, one of the things that Walt talked about is like things should always be moving and changing and moving forward. And one of the things that the Orlando area is getting, which is really cool in 2022, is a high-speed train. And one of the things that they're getting is a high-speed train specifically from the airport to Disney Springs.
Right.
And so if you sit back and actually like take a second to think about things, you would have to assume that the complimentary bag service is probably still coming. That's going to get shifted around where instead of now I have to contract all these major buses, I just need some cargo vans, right? I can just get some cargo vans and then I have people just come to the airport, collect bags and bounce.
Right.
And what I instead do...
Or I mean, they might even have a baggage car on the fucking train.
Maybe. But what I'm going to do... What I'm going to do now is I'm going to send you onto this train that's going to drop you off at Disney Springs. And so now, while your room is getting ready, because inevitably there's going to be that 45 minutes to an hour once you get there of like having to wait anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm going to drop you off at Disney Springs first. And now you're going to be in a shopping center and then you can come to your resort when your room is ready.
Check in. You will get your information. Go to Disney Springs. Have yourself a drink and a bite to eat, and we'll let you know when your room's ready. Yeah. Simple, easy.
Because I guarantee you that they'll shift that around so that you'll be able to like do remote check-in or something.
You can already do it.
Yeah,
you can already do. Well, at least the last time I went, you could already do the checking in on the mobile app. And then
you have your key.
Yeah,
it's already attached to your Magic Band.
Oh, like, and then they're going to charge us $5 for the Magic Band. It's like, dude, it doesn't make or break my ass. It's like if you're going to Disney and you're bitching about $5, man, you shouldn't be going.
Also,
like, that's not a make or break.
I already bought a custom Thanos Magic Band.
See, I never got it because there was a bunch. I've gone a bunch of times with the Magic Bands, and I've seen really cool ones that I really liked. But my concern was always they don't last. Like the bands like only have a shelf life of the battery, right?
Yeah, but the battery is like 10 years.
Oh, I read it was like 2.
Oh no, it's longer than that.
And I'm like, well, I'm not gonna like they used to give you the free one anyway,
right?
And it's like, and again, it's not that big of a deal to me. It's either the thing on my wrist or a key card in my wallet. Like,
right?
Really, like
and
that's
it's only a matter of time
important.
before they with Apple Watches and Fitbits and all that other stuff that it's just going to go onto there anyway.
Well, that's one of the things that they're going to institute now, where if you choose to not spend the $5 on the band, you have the option of the old school key cards, I believe, which is still RFID, or there's going to be something on your phone. Like they're going to update the app somehow so your phone can do all that shit too, which is like, fine.
Yeah.
Like all of this stuff that I'm reading, I'm like, none of this makes or breaks my trip.
Oh no,
it's all little, and it's not even like major conveniences,
right?
You know what I mean? It's like the Magic Band's like, this is game changing. It's like, it's a good feature.
Yeah. Well, the Magic Bands were nice because you could have all your cards and stuff attached to it, so I don't have instead of having to carry a wallet, I can just carry my phone, and that's it. Yeah. You know, I stick my ID in the back of the case, and we're good to go. That's
just it, because they still ask for your license anyway when you do that thing. So it's like, okay, it's not a big fucking deal. You know?
No, it's they're streamlining everything. When has Disney ever done anything that's more cumbersome?
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing, is like, for people that just like are nuts about this stuff, it's just like, when have they ever made something that was just more cumbersome? Never.
I mean, it boils down to like anything else going on in the world right now. People just want to bitch and moan.
Oh yeah. Well, anything. I remember when everybody complained about Facebook back in the day. It's a feature they don't even have anymore, right? But like back in the day when you had like your profile picture and Facebook was like that blank slate and it was just like literally just the picture, but then they added the banner and you could like have like an extra picture that was that like banner or whatever.
Right.
And everybody lost their goddamn mind about it. And it's just like, guys, it's a free fucking app. Shut up. Shut up.
People fear change.
They do.
People fear change. But maybe a month or two ago, there was it was like, I don't know, blueprints, for lack of a better term, on the buses, the customized buses Disney's going to use to get people from the airport to the immersive Star Wars hotel that they're going to be planning. And again, these were just, blueprints. And I'm looking at it, and for those of you that don't know, the hotel that's planned is basically, I think you can only max out at like 2 or 3 days for this, and it's fully immersive. Like basically you are in Star Wars, and people like
you're a character.
You're a character in Star Wars. It's not like just going to a theme park. You are actually like the hotel. The windows are LED screens that make you
have a storyline,
and it looks like you're in space. That's the whole gimmick, right? You're on a space cruiser, is what it's called. And of course, they want, much like Disney does with the Magical Express, they want you to be in, for lack of a better term, their bubble from the moment you step off the plane in Orlando. So they're going to have these like customized buses, and it's almost like, think of it like a regular bus that they have at the parks that transport you to and from your hotel to the parks, right?
Right.
It's one of those, but think of it with like a pop-out camper type of thing. So it's like extended, so it's like almost like a double wide type of bus type of thing.
Sure.
But it's all, again, there's no windows. It's all LED screens because you're in space, right? You're going on. You're docking at your space cruise. So it's all that. And reading people's comments were so fucking negative. It was like, it's just a bus. I can't believe they're just going to give us a bus. And I had to comment. Like it got to the point where it was so consistently negative that I'm like, oh my God, here's how you need to look at this, because you guys all just seem to hate fun.
Yeah.
The way I'm seeing this is they have taken the time to customize a transport bus from the airport to your resort that will immerse you in the world of Star Wars for your vacation. First of all, the one saying it's just a bus, what did you think they were going to do? Actually come up with some kind of space travel technology? Like, what exactly were you hoping for?
Oh, that's,
you know what I mean?
thing. I think you commented on a wrestling post that I said something very similar to.
Probably. When people
the guy was talking about a fireball.
The Randy Orton thing.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you expect? Like actual murder?
Yeah.
like when people were bitching the Randy Orton Fiend match that ended with Bray Wyatt being set on fire. At what I think it was the last pay-per-view, right?
It was.
And I watched it, and granted, I think, at this point we all know that wrestling is entertainment, right?
Fictional
characters. Thank you, Holden McNeil. And I'm reading people being like, "Oh, dude, you could totally tell it wasn't really him." I'm like, did you really want them to murder somebody?
Yeah.
Because that's the other option.
Yeah. Because remember how lame it
edited match that actually gives you a payoff to because the Inferno matches that they've done, and we will get to awful. Avengers right after this.
Yeah, because that was the thing I was going to bring up.
The Inferno matches have always been a letdown.
Right, because it's Kane who just has his arm on fire and he runs out, or somebody rolls through the fire and they immediately douse him with, and you don't see
This was the payoff that everybody's wanted since 1998 when they started doing Inferno matches. It was someone literally engulfed in fire.
Right, and it was a dummy, but it's fictional.
Was great. It was a great ending. I watched it 3 or 4 times that night. I'm like, that's really, and the way they edited it was pretty goddamn seamless.
Yeah,
they did a really good job on that match, and I'm like, they're not going to murder somebody, and Disney is not going to actually build space technology. They're not going to put you in space, so you have to suspend disbelief. You're literally going to Disney World and you're lacking imagination. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, what the fuck is wrong with you? You don't get to go
back on the Figment ride, listen to Eric Idle's Imagination song, and then come back and talk to me.
Yeah, you're done. You don't get to come anymore. You don't get to come here anymore.
Like that, because that's the thing, and that's almost like the default comment you want to write to people. It's like, well, just don't go. Nobody's forcing you to go to Disney World for vacation.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Nobody's forcing you to watch wrestling. If you don't like something, don't do it.
Right.
Don't fucking do it. You know what I mean? It's pretty goddamn simple,
It is pretty goddamn simple.
All right. Ready to do
Avengers.
Ready to do it? All right. Avengers Age of Ultron.
I'm going to show you something beautiful. Everyone screaming for mercy. You want to protect the world, but you don't want it to change. You're all puppets, tangled in strings.
It's the end. The end of the path I started us on.
Nothing lasts forever.
Now I'm free.
Avengers Age of Ultron was released May 1st, 2015. It had a budget of $444 to $495 million. I love it when they can't like give me an actual number. It's like, oh, it was somewhere in there.
Yeah, somewhere
in there. It had a box office of $1.4 billion.
Yeah, God,
just print money. It was written and directed by Joss Whedon, and it starred Robert Downey Jr., Chris Hemsworth, Mark Ruffalo, Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Jeremy Renner, Don Cheadle, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Elizabeth Olsen, Paul Bettany, Colby Smulders, Anthony Mackie, Haley Atwell, Idris Elba, Stellan Skarsgård, James Spader, and Samuel L. Motherfucking Jackson.
Yeah.
So yeah, it starred the MCU.
Yeah. Everybody.
And everyone available at
that time.
At that time.
Yeah, this movie was way better than I remembered. Because I always kind of remembered Thor 2 and like Age of Ultron were like in the bottom third of the Yeah. And so it was just like all of a sudden I rewatched this movie and I'm like, oh, this is way better than I remembered it being.
It's what I took away from it was a couple things. I know I texted you when I was watching it. The whole first part of the movie, up until Ultron actually shows up at the end of that party.
Yeah.
Reminded me heavily of how I felt about Ocean's 11-12. Which was Ocean's 11-12. Ocean's 12. Yes.
Ocean's 11-12.
Ocean's 11-12. Which I felt
Ocean's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Watching Ocean's 12. Watching Ocean's 12, I always felt like it felt as if Soderbergh just kind of set up a camera in the corner of a room and let the cast get drunk and shoot the shit.
Yeah. And
that's how the first half of this movie feels. It's kind of like, because there's a lot of like, oh, everyone's fucking quippy. Everyone's, doing all the, it looks like, first of all, it looks like they're having fun.
Yes.
It's the first
Which is
part
something 1984 Wonder Woman lacked.
Oh God, that movie was just so bad. I have so many thoughts. But that's not what we're doing. Different show. We might do that one later. But it was like, it was a very, and obviously I think they set it up as a very lighthearted beginning because of, so they could then switch gears and have all the stakes that would come with Ultron, which I did enjoy. But the big thing as I kept watching the movie was going back and watching this in, as I guess we're calling it, a post-Endgame world.
Yeah, hindsight.
Was amazingly eye-opening how all the little references that we didn't know at the time were references. Like Tony Stark says Endgame in this movie.
Yes.
Yes,
he does.
Now, you can say what you want that, they didn't know they were going to call it Endgame, but motherfucker says it in this movie twice.
And it's referential.
Twice.
Right. And it's like it's not like this throwaway thing where he just says the word Endgame. No, he's like, this is the goal. Like, it's the end game. This is what we're trying to achieve. It's like, oh God.
Right. They bring up Wakanda years before we got to Black Panther.
They go to Wakanda.
Okay, so they did go. That's where Andy Serkis was, right?
Right, and they set up him, who's in Black Panther. But
so I didn't know they actually were in Wakanda, probably because they were in like a refinery or something that you didn't see Wakanda,
Yeah, and so the idea was that was the outward facing section of Wakanda.
Gotcha.
The whole point, when Chadwick Boseman, when the Black Panther shows up in Civil War, and they're like, he's from the nation of Wakanda.
Right.
That's the part of Wakanda that the world sees.
Gotcha. But yeah, just like all these little pieces.
The hammer. Because at the time when we see Steve Rogers move the hammer a little bit, you ultimately think that it's to set up Vision picking it up later. Right. When in fact it's actually setting up him getting the hammer in Endgame. It's
literally setting up one of the best moments in the MCU ever.
Right.
Like, still to this day, that's one of those get chills type of moments.
Right.
Even to the fact that at the end of the movie, in the climax, when all shit's Louis, okay. Before I say that, is Sokovia a town or is a country?
Supposed to be a country, I think.
Okay, so the whole country is falling out of the sky.
Yes.
Okay, and all the Avengers are kind of scattered around. They're trying to save all the civilians. And Wanda, Scarlet Witch, is in a bus, and the motherfucker that saves her and pulls her out of the bus is Vision, and that brings us to goddamn WandaVision.
Yeah.
It's like, that shit
That's
is deep.
where they fall in love.
That shit, like all of a sudden, I'm noticing the two of them giving each other little looks, and I'm like, this was both of their first appearances, and they had that shit set up. It's like, holy,
yeah,
wow.
And then even in the death scene, right, where like in the beginning of the movie, Scarlet Witch starts fucking with Tony's head,
right,
and he sees all the Avengers laid out and dead,
right,
and it's like you even see the shield cracked in half,
yep,
and that's how it ends up cracked in half,
yep,
and it's like it's crazy because you hear the thing where it's just like, Tony, you could have saved us, like he basically, if you look at it, you're like, oh, I don't know what this is. Like,
if you're watching it in 2015, all of this shit just goes over your head as just like it's a comic book movie, yay!
Yeah, but now you're looking at it and it's just like, oh, this is the future if he doesn't sacrifice himself,
right?
Like, this is what ends up happening.
And they do.
Like, holy crap!
I mean, going forward, Tony references this moment a lot in other movies. Like I had that. Like he keeps going back to I had that vision.
Right.
He's really the only one, because they all had their different visions and stuff like that. And even Thor's when him and Idris Elba in his dream sequence foreshadows the fall of Asgard.
Right.
Which in Ragnarok. So that there's just so much foreshadowing that it's wild, because like I don't remember, because I when we did the marathon back when Endgame was coming out, I wasn't there for Ultron. I think I skipped Ultron. I think I was one of the times.
Again, that's where it was. It was just like, all right, I can miss it.
It was in that block that I was like, I'm going home and taking a shower and then taking a sleep and stuff like that. So I don't know the last time I actually sat down and watched Ultron front to back. And it's like, again, hindsight, watching it now after all the shit that's happened, it's like, wow, they really did have all these pieces in place.
Right.
Way back then.
And so, like, the phase 1 is very self-contained. All of the stuff that is involved in phase 1 is very much just for the Avengers, like the first Avengers movie.
Sure.
Then, once they realized what they had, it feels like they sat down and were like, all right, this is the plan. Like, this is what we're doing. Right. And because it's crazy when you watch all these movies, because even in even in Captain America Winter Soldier, right, they reference Doctor Strange as like a potential target, right? And that's 4 movies later, that they do the Doctor Strange. And so it's crazy. It just how much thought went into this and that attention to detail. And it's like it's crazy when people want to compare the MCU to everything the DC's doing, like the DC extended universe, and it's just like, hey, assholes, you're just shooting a gun in the dark hoping you're gonna hit a target, when these people over here were like, oh, let's meticulously plan out a strategy so that you can watch these movies years apart and then realize, oh yeah, that sequel that isn't out yet is going to be referencing we're going to reference like 90% of it in this movie. It's going to be tied in directly.
I mean, even the setting up of what would become Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet and stuff. I mean, I know he literally shows up in the post-credit scene. Also, only one post-credit scene. My God.
Yeah,
that was very like it was surprising and refreshing. I'm like, usually now there's like 5 or 6 of them.
That was the best part of watching it on Disney Plus. I fast forwarded all the way to the mid-credit scene, and then I was just like, all right, there's got to be another one. I zipped all the way to the end, and then I stopped it and I was like, is this the credits in French?
Yep.
That's a weird choice.
A weird one.
I wonder did I have to wait the entire time to see the Thanos thing, or did they just put it in the middle because that's what they did for Disney Plus? I don't know.
Honestly, I don't remember. But even setting that up, like Thor talking about the Infinity Stones, when when Vision finally came through, and he points to the Mind Stone, he starts explaining kind of loosely, there's they're the most powerful things, and they've we've gotten 4 of the Infinity Stones in the last few years, and he even says someone is definitely putting pieces in motion, obviously referencing Thanos. There was talk when Ultron originally came out, or when they were making it, to make Thanos the baddie in this one. And I guess it was Josh Whedon that kind of pushed in the direction of Ultron, being that they still, because this was technically only the second Avengers team-up movie at the time. Since then, obviously we've had, Civil War, and they seem to just, everyone seems to show up now in every movie.
Which is the best. Which is
wonderful. It's one of the things I'm looking super forward to when I heard that the Guardians of the Galaxy showed up in Australia for Thor 3 or 4, Love and Thunder. So it's like, oh great, we're gonna, because that was, I've said it many times on the show, the Thor Tree and Rabbit was my favorite part of Infinity War. I could watch a whole series of movies just with those guys. So the fact that they're gonna be there, knowing that Thor is gonna be part of their sequel down the road as well, it's like, oh, I like that. But at the time, they had only done these 2, and Josh Whedon had said that he wanted to keep the Avengers grounded, like in reality, for lack of a better term, with people, and he didn't want to
jump space stuff yet.
Yeah, he didn't want to jump into space this early, which it was, funnily enough, this was actually his last Marvel movie. But it makes sense. It gave us Ultron with voiced by James Spader, which was he was incredible.
I don't really like James Spader. Like, I don't know what it is. He feels like, cheap mockbuster knockoff Hannibal Lecter. But
he's one of those guys to me, and I think we've talked about these types of actors on the show. The Dylan McDermott, Dermot Mulroney, Bill Paxton, Bill Pullman.
Yes.
It was always, for me, it was James Spader and Willem Dafoe.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean? They could, either one could be put into either role. You know what I mean?
Correct. But James Spader's voice is amazing. And so him being the voice of Ultron is great.
It's so smooth too. Like it's just like that. It was really, really cool. And he said that was his actually, like, he wasn't doing a voice. It was just his normal speaking voice that they tweaked a little bit, but not even that much. One of the cool things I found in research was, and I like this about the MCU, we've seen plenty of behind the scenes shots of Infinity War and Endgame with Brolin on set with the Thanos head above him and stuff. Spader was also on set doing Ultron stuff. One of the funnier parts of it was Ultron is around 8 to 9 feet tall.
Yeah.
Spader is just under 6 feet. And so they had these like 3-foot poles attached to his back with 2 red balls at the top that were representing his eyes. So the problem was, when he was delivering his dialogue, apparently he was doing it so well that Elizabeth Olsen would occasionally just stop looking at the eyes and start acknowledging James Spader, to the point that it became an ongoing joke where Aaron Taylor Johnson, who played Quicksilver in this, would constantly say, Lizzie, look at his balls. Look up at his balls. So fun and shenanigans on the set of Ultron.
She's great. I'm really glad that we ditched the accent.
100%.
Because the accent for the 2 of them is awful. It's really funny because there were two other movies, to like two other movies, I guess. I don't know, whatever. But that came out around this time that were affecting this movie. Indirectly or directly, I'm not sure which. But the fact that we got 2 Quicksilvers this year, because Days of Future Past, the X-Men movie, came out, and Quicksilver was in Days of Future Past. And so it was really weird that we had that. And then basically the scene of all of the Avengers rescuing all of the people from the town was directly influenced because Man of Steel came out, and they got so much crap for Zod and Superman's fight scene just leveling Metropolis.
Right.
And like they didn't care about anybody else, and so many people would have died and all this other stuff.
Right.
That they made that scene in this movie just to show that the Avengers like took human life into account.
So and it was funny because in those, they were setting it up, and there was a lot of rumors and talk and blah 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 that, you know, in this movie, the build up to this movie, that one of the Avengers was going to die.
Yeah.
And I remember it was one of those things, like I actively was, you know, soft scrolling, don't want to click no, because I wanted to see the movie. I don't want it to be spoiled. And what I went into it without catching any spoilers, and watching them set it up, I was convinced, like I would have put money on a bet that it was going to be Hawkeye.
Oh, 100%. As soon as they introduced his family,
it's like all of a sudden this silent person has a full personality. He's got a family, a wife, a house, and the farm, and the kids. And I'm just like,
he's talking about retirement.
He's talking more. Like he had a personality. He was funny, and it's like up until this point, Hawkeye was very tertiary character, like that barely had a personality. And all of a sudden he's quippy and he's telling jokes. And, you know, in the party scene, he's sitting there with his drumsticks, cracking wise on the hammer shit. And I'm like, he's dead. He's fucking dead. It can't be one of the two twins because they just showed up.
Right.
You know
it's not gonna be Tony or Cap.
Right. Because we're not there. Because everybody kept talking. That was something I kept seeing, because everyone was like, it can't be them because Civil War hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
You know, and that was the one when Civil War was building up, that it was expected that one of them, more likely Iron Man, was going to die.
Well, because in the comic books, Civil War ends with Captain America dying.
Yeah.
Like the actual like comic book thing,
Sure.
Cap dies. And so it's just like, oh yeah, one of them's got to die. That's how this, you know,
that's how it has to end. But obviously it didn't. And
it didn't.
I'm very happy they didn't, because the ending we got in Endgame was much better. But yeah, so when all of a sudden it was like, and it's funny because Quicksilver's last line in this is, "You didn't see that coming," and it's like, fuck, you are absolutely right. I did not. Right. I thought it was the guy you just saved that was going to get shot.
Right.
But
I'm really interested to see, because the only so they tweaked a lot of stuff with Wanda, because in her actual history, she obviously her brother is Pietro, and that's Quicksilver,
right?
And he's dead, so whatever. But those twins are the son and daughter of Magneto. That is the big thing, and we could not do that. We couldn't really reference their parents. We couldn't they did like a little bit.
They couldn't.
Legally, they couldn't. They didn't own the rights.
They couldn't
to
say
Magneto.
mutant. They were enhanced.
That was something that I noticed a lot this time around, was them calling them enhanced and not saying mutants.
Like that was a legal thing.
Yeah, they couldn't call them mutants, and the only reason they got it is because Wanda and Quicksilver are Avengers. That's the only reason they were allowed to be in there, and also in the other X-Men movies, because they were a part of two different teams, so technically they could do that. But I wonder if, and you know, I have so much hope for WandaVision, not only because I think that both of these actors play these characters really well, as well as the writing in the MCU has always been great, as they build and build and build on things. So I have no reason to think that it won't be. Right. But we can now have her basically explore that end of things. Not
because they own the X-Men,
because they own the X-Men again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it'll be really interesting to see how that works out.
And it's interesting because I don't think they called them Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver ever. At least not in this movie.
They called her a witch, but they didn't call her the Scarlet Witch.
Because they've always been referred to either as the twins, or in this movie anyway, the twins, or by their name, like Wanda, and I don't even think he ever was audibly given a name.
Right.
But, you know, what was it? Barton named his kid after him in the end. When
Oh, yeah.
when
Scarlett Johansson sees the baby.
And he's got his name on his shirt, and the middle name was it Pietro or something like that?
Pietro.
Yeah, and it was so well done the way they set that up, even his death, I mean, because the whole time him and Barton were very much at odds.
Yes.
You know, even to the point when they're all trying to save Sokovia, and there was that again, they gave Barton so much personality. I was convinced he was dead. Yeah, because he had that moment where he just kind of paused and he held his arrow and he had Quicksilver lined up and he's like, I could do it. And I'm just like,
right.
We have, it's the old CinemaSins thing. We have time for this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
It's like we got time and that was just it. It's like, oh, they're giving Jeremy Renner all his time to get all his shit in because this is it.
Yeah, this is it.
And sure enough, it wasn't. And he's going to get his own Disney Plus spinoff show.
Yeah, there was even a reference to Scarlett Johansson falling to her death.
It had to be in one of the dream sequences, right?
No, at the end when it's going to fall, the city's going to fall, and they all kind of
right.
before the helicarrier shows up. I forget what the actual line is, but she basically is just like, yeah, you know.
It was because I do remember that line when they were in the car, and I think it was Tony was telling them to hurry up or something like that, and she made a quippy line like, "Not all of us can fly," something like that. And again, I kind of like that shit because it does put in perspective that, while they're quote unquote super soldiers, they're actually like real people. You know what I mean? In this, and it's weird because when you see her or you see Jeremy Renner and they have to run to the next thing or they have to get in a car and drive to the next thing. And meanwhile, Thor is just whipping around on his hammer and Tony's is flying around. That was another thing I wanted to bring up. Because I really took notice of it in the first fight with Ultron in Wakanda, with the Andy Serkis scene. So, what kind of like protection and padding do you think Tony has in the Iron Man suit? Because he went full blast through a wall into Ultron, which is a metal robot.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I mean, I've been in car accidents before, man. That shit still hurts. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that it's supposed to. I don't know. I honestly have no idea.
A lot.
And I'm just flies head first into shit.
Like, I get it. You're armored, so you're protected in that respect, but you're still slamming into a lot of shit.
Yeah. I mean? Yeah. You're getting tossed around. Yeah.
How much protection is that really? But that's
Do you have an airbag?
Right. Is it like your whole inside's just like a big water balloon or some shit?
I forgot how much I liked Ultron like as a character.
Yeah.
Like from Jump Street, everything about Ultron is so great. The comic book version is very much like one of the biggest antagonists for the Avengers.
Right.
Whenever they do one of those like Elseworld what if sort of stories, and like the Avengers all died, the reason 90% of the time is that Ultron killed them.
Right.
Like that's basically what they do. Is like the Avengers died. How'd the Avengers die? Ultron. It's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And one of the best things about it, and it gives me hope because we can always bring Ultron back, is that his conscious just kept shifting from body to body.
I like that, yeah.
And so it was really fun. There was a great jump scare in there where he's talking to to Black Widow when he has her trapped.
Yep.
And the body's talking, and then all of a sudden the other Ultron just rips it apart.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, that's so fun. It's so much fun.
So fun.
And I'm waiting. That's the thing I'm waiting for, is that, because Ultron's still very smart. So while he got burned out of the internet and like he couldn't escape that way, and that's how we ended up having him just on the robots that he had on there.
Right.
Him being backed up on a hard drive somewhere and being unleashed some other way.
Well, that was, and I was thinking about this watching the movie again today. And it's kind of like, I understand that you have to keep the train rolling, but it's one of those things like, it's a little disappointing when we have to kill a bad guy in every movie.
Right.
Because it's like, like I said, I get it. We can't have a bunch of bad, because it would just muddy the story. We have to get to Thanos, right? So we have to get through all these bad guys to get to Thanos. But I thought of the same thing with like Ronan and Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff. And it's like, I would have liked to, give me another movie with them. You know what I mean?
Right.
And Ultron, because, and again, you got to put a lot of it on Spader and his voice work, just the charisma in that character,
right? Just
coming through. I'm like, I would love to see another movie with that. You know what I mean? Give me one more movie with him before we get on to Thanos type of thing. Black Panther is another great example because of Michael B. Jordan. Yeah, it's like Michael B. Jordan was fantastic, and it's like, do we really have to get rid of him now?
Yeah,
it's like, I would love to see one, and they don't have to like. My thing would be like, they don't have to show up in every fucking movie. It's like if they just got away.
Well, that's the thing is like,
and come back, 3 movies from now.
They're going to be smarter than Star Wars was, because Star Wars showed their hand with the Emperor in The Rise of Skywalker, which was ultimately really stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But, like I said, you could have Ultron have backed himself up on a hard drive somewhere.
Sure.
And now somebody unexpectedly, inadvertently just boots up that hard drive, and now Ultron's back. You know what I mean? Right. So that's the good thing about a character like that. Unfortunately, with someone like Ronan the Accuser, while an awesome character, he got vaporized.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do we bring that guy back?
Well, and that's just it. Without obviously there's things that can be explored with this the Loki series, because that's going to have a lot to do with time travel and stuff like that, I guess.
Right.
And we proved in Endgame that time travel is a thing and doesn't really have a set of rules.
Yeah, right.
It's like what is it? Back to the Future, Up to Time Machine, Die Hard, and all the great time travel movies.
All the great time travel movies.
Something I didn't realize. So I was scrolling a second ago. Lou Ferrigno did the voice of Hulk in this movie.
I think he did Hulk in the first 2.
Is that right? Because I know he showed up in one of them. Like he was a security guard, and maybe it was the Ed Norton.
It
Hulk
was
movie.
the Ed Norton one. I know he was in that one.
That's
but
good.
Yeah, I want to say he did the Hulk for the first 2. I don't think he did Endgame or Ragnarok.
At that point it was Smart Hulk. So I mean, and I think at that point they were using Ruffalo just because there was a lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
And they really, I think they probably this was more just yelling, grunting, Hulk smash, that sort of shit. So it's cute to have
Hulk stuff.
Yeah, it's cute to have Ferrigno do a little voice cameo in that.
Right.
Now, okay, so we've talked a lot about Wanda, obviously.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about Vision.
Sure.
First of all, what is Vision?
So Vision originally, the comic book version of Vision, he's created by Ultron to spy on the Avengers. That's ultimately what ends up happening. And then they end up reprogramming him, and he's able to be a hero now.
Okay.
That's basically what he is.
I guess watching it, and a lot of the stuff happens very quickly, and I think some of the stuff that threw me was a lot of the creation of Ultron or Vision was done through those glowy, orby, the blue and the yellow orb things.
Yeah.
So I guess I got a little lost in that. Where the hell did the Mind Stone come from? Where did we find that?
So the Mind Stone was in the scepter. So Loki shows up, and he has the Tesseract and the scepter, right? And so the Tesseract is the Space Stone, and the Mind Stone is the scepter. That's why when he touches you, he can control your mind, because it's the Mind Stone and the scepter.
So they kind of fucked me up with that one, because I guess I never put 2 and 2 together. I always thought that the stone in the scepter was the stone inside the Tesseract. Like the Tesseract was a cube that housed it. And I guess I thought that because both of them are blue and the Mind Stone's yellow.
Right.
So when he had the scepter, it was blue. So is there an explanation for that, or it just looked cool?
Well, they both had housing. So Thanos breaks the Tesseract and gets the stone out of there. And then Ultron breaks the scepter, the housing of and takes the Mind Stone out.
Okay.
So
okay, yeah.
Because he basically is doing a monologue where he's talking about how humans don't understand what they have, and they never dig a little deeper, and he breaks the thing, and that's where the Mind Stone is.
Right.
So
how did he get the body for Vision?
So he stole all of or bought all of the adamantium from Andy Serkis.
Oh, vibranium.
The vibranium. Sorry, not adamantium. Vibranium.
Is it okay? That's another thing. Is it the same thing? We just can't say adamantium.
No, they're different.
Okay, all right.
Because Wolverine is made of adamantium.
Right.
Cap's shield is vibranium.
Right. I didn't know if that was like we need to call it something else because we don't own Fox yet, type of thing.
Yeah, they're two fictional metals in the Marvel universe.
Basically, are the same thing.
But
they're basically unbreakable fucking metals.
Yeah, basically.
Right.
And so the plan is that he's going to make a robotic body out of the vibranium and then put his consciousness in it, because that way he will be unbreakable. Because all these bodies that he's been in have been disposable up until this point.
Right. So does that mean now that Vision was made of vibranium?
Correct.
So how does him and Wanda get together? Like, how the hell does that work?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe we'll find out in WandaVision.
I mean, it's so far they've kept the MCU family friendly, so I guess we haven't really explored that shit. But how does that all work? And also, he turns into like a human when he wants to. So
he can change his he can change his appearance.
Sure.
So
just willy nilly, just come, or does it always look like Paul Bettany? Is he like the shapeshifters like in Captain Marvel, or is it just like I can turn myself skin colored instead of this red and gray shit?
Yeah, he can basically. He's always Paul Bettany looking, but he can like change from there.
And is that how the comics went? Is that how he?
I believe so. He's like a weird white ghost person in the in the comics. It's like. So I don't really remember.
So before we wrap up, so we have obviously WandaVision starting. They're going to drop the first 2 episodes on, or they're actually, by the time you listen to this, already on Disney Plus, and then go week to week like their thing.
I love that so much more.
I'm hit or miss on it. I can, it's one of those things like I would love to burn through them and just binge watch. Right. But then there's also the. It's nice because you get to sit with that episode each week, and like Mandalorian was obviously the one we all just finished. It's like it's nice to be able to process that 30 minutes to an hour of television that you just watched instead of having it almost get lost because you had 3 more hours of it.
Right. Well, that's the thing is like Tacoma FD is very fun. And it's a comedy, and I burned through a bunch of them. Letterkenny is another one, and it's just like, oh, this is fun, and it's easy to burn through. But something that's like The Mandalorian, where it's just like, oh, there's like weight to this. Right. I got to actually sit and pay attention to this. Right. It's how I felt about when I watched Yellowstone, and it's just like, oh, there's a weight to this. And that's how I feel like WandaVision is going to be fun.
Sure.
Don't get me wrong, but I guarantee you, like, one of the big things, and it's being kind of underplayed, and it's only in some of the commercials, is when that lady looks at Vision and goes, "Am I dead?" And he goes, "No, why?" He's like, "'Cause you are." Yeah. And it's just
it feels, and that's exactly the moment I thought too. I believe it's Anna Gasteyer is the actress, and it's like. When she did that, I'm like, oh, this is going to be some dark shit in this show. Yeah. Like, it's going to be Disney. It's going to be, Marvel family friendly stuff, but it's going to be like some weird dark subtext to this.
Well, and it's going to be really interesting because I believe.
Because he is dead.
Yeah, he's dead. But I believe wholeheartedly that this is going to be how we get the mutants into the MCU.
I mean, it would make complete sense.
Because, a big story in the Marvel, comic books is House of M. And part of what House of M does is Wanda goes crazy and makes a world completely of mutants and then a world completely of non-mutants. Like, she gets rid of all of them. Right. And so it's just like, oh, that would be awesome if we somehow incorporate that into it. Not the whole, that part, because it's like this weird storyline where it's Clint, Wolverine, and Spider-Man. Okay. And they're the only ones that know that this is weird. And why Hawkeye's there.
I mean, it would be a cool way to start introducing mutants, but it's WandaVision. You don't want to turn into the X-Men show.
Yeah, no, it would definitely be like the end of WandaVision.
Right. Like someone would make an appearance type of thing.
Right.
Speaking of mutants and X-Men, Kevin Feige was making the rounds promoting WandaVision, obviously, and revealed that Deadpool 3 is going to be part of the MCU and R-rated, and that Ryan Reynolds has already started working on the script with them.
Because they know exactly what they're doing, and so you just let them keep doing what they're doing. And I mean on both sides, right?
Yeah.
From the Disney MCU side and the Ryan Reynolds Deadpool side, it's just like just keep doing the things that you're doing. Because in a world where I can have Rocket Raccoon and Deadpool be in a movie together,
I'm good.
Shut up and take my money.
Yep.
Shut up and take my money.
It was funny because every time, anytime there's any type of news, and we talked about this earlier with the Walt Disney World stuff, people want to bitch about stuff. Of course they do on the internet.
Yeah.
And I always go back to when Age of Ultron was actually coming out back in 2015, I had the opportunity to sit down with Chris Evans on Wicked Bites. He was at Fenway Park for a fundraiser, and it was literally like 2 weeks before it. And I was poking him a little bit. I'm just like, give me a spoiler. And he's like, I can't tell you shit. Come on. What he did say that has always stuck with me over these years, because I at the end of the interview, I said, all right, well, you can't tell me anything about Ultron. Just for the sake of selling the movie, what would make me buy a ticket to Age of Ultron? And he literally just looked at me and goes, it's Marvel. They haven't made a mistake yet. And I'm like, and that's always stuck with me.
Yeah.
And going back and watching it and seeing how all the pieces were set up for Endgame back then. And it's like, he's absolutely right. Like and you reference Star Wars, and it's like how much they screwed up those sequels, and now it's kind of getting back into shape with, surprisingly Favreau, who started the MCU with them, and Filoni being involved, and now Robert Rodriguez is getting involved in the Boba Fett show, and it's like now it seems like they're putting the pieces in place to have like a MCU like storyline moving forward with Star Wars. It took them a minute, but it's like, wow, they really, and we talked about this back when Endgame came out. It's like, the best franchises, and it's like, well, the MCU has 23, 24 movies now, and I mean, fuck, like we said in our Endgame review, they even made Dark World relevant.
Right.
That was always the redheaded stepchild of the group. It was like they always pointed and said,
yeah, the bottom three are, and I think from worst to not as bad, is always Dark World, Iron Man 3, Age of Ultron.
Right.
Like, that's the bottom three in every single review.
Sure.
And
those aren't bad bottom threes.
No.
I mean? Those aren't really bad bottom threes. Like, those are, and especially going back and like we said, this, I don't think it's a big, like, if you got all the way to the end of this review, we enjoyed the movie. Like, this isn't a bad movie, especially in hindsight now.
I'd watch it 15,000 times over instead of watching Wonder Woman 1984 again.
That movie was so messy.
It just shows you, like, that's the thing, is like, if you can take anything away, like when you're talking about 24, right? I think it's 24 movies, maybe 25 if you include Spider-Man, the last Spider-Man.
I think Spider-Man was 24 because I remember us continually saying around Endgame 23 movies. I think the marathon was 24 movies.
So then all of the MCU stuff that we have till this point is 24 movies.
Yeah.
Right? And all of them are extremely watchable, coherent, fun, awesome movies that you can put on. If it's on TV, you can just jump in and enjoy it. Yep. And then the flip side is that you watch everything with DC and they're just chickens with their head cut off. They have, which is mind-boggling to me, because Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman are the biggest superheroes ever. They are. They were. Yeah, they were. But
the B squad of Iron Man showed up, and it's like that was always a funny part, because Disney was pigeonholed with the quote unquote B squad of superheroes because the X-Men and all that shit was all sold off, and the Fantastic Four was all sold off, and it's like they turned that B squad into the pinnacle.
Right.
It's like now when you talk about superhero movies, it's like, oh, Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, it's the Avengers. It's not It's like, oh yeah, didn't Christian Bale do Batman? Well, we had 3 or 4 since then.
Dude, we've had 3 or 4 since then. Like, I don't know whether or not we're sticking with the DC extended universe, whether we're not. We're trying to reboot it. Maybe we're not. We're giving Zack Snyder the keys again. Then we're doing this Wonder Woman movie that just doesn't fucking make sense and is just awful. That movie was bad.
It was bad. And I really wanted to enjoy it because I liked the first one.
I like Gal Gadot. I think she plays Wonder Woman well. It's good. A classic, it's a classic example. And I say this, I always reference the Chronicles of Riddick with the sequel to Pitch Black, where it's like, there is a good character that is played very well by this actor in a very bad movie.
Right. Well, and for me, without doing a full-blown Wonder Woman 84 review, there was a few things that stuck out to me that turned me off to the movie. First of all, it was an amazing opening sequence that I wish we had a full movie of.
Yeah.
The young Wonder Woman origin story, like we've gotten snippets of that.
Right.
I don't even know what that world is called, but
Mascara.
Yeah. And we got a little bit of it in the first one before she came to Earth, and we got a little bit more of it this one. They did that obstacle course triathlon thing, and I'm like, I could sit in this world for 2 hours, but we didn't get that. And then when we got to Earth, and it's supposed to be literally the title of the movie was 1984. Where was the Duran Duran? Where was the 80s shit? Like I was fully in on like, let's get some weird cheesy 80s movies, some like basically Hot Tub Time Machine.
Right.
For
everything that Stranger Things leaned into their time periods in their shows, Wonder Woman didn't do that. It could have been placed in any time period. There was nothing 80s specific about it. I got very confused with why Chris Pine was involved in this movie. Well, the worst the
reveal that it was him was weird and didn't make a lot of sense. And then the internet went off because I guess she kind of raped him. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what. Also, fictional characters.
Yeah. The whole thing is weird.
She has the power to make the invisible jet because of fan service, but apparently that doesn't exist in Justice League. Here's the thing. We mentioned this in our Joker review. I'm all in for DC abandoning the expanded universe and just making one-off movies. But when you're trying to connect dots and you're creating more holes, it's weird. Like the weird shit they're doing, and I think we talked about this, the weird shit they're doing over with the Flash movie where there's like 18 Batmans and they're bringing Michael Keaton back. Sure. It sounds goofy. It sounds weird. And I'm all for it. I really want that to be good. I really want it to succeed. Like I want these movies to be good because I want to enjoy the entertainment part of it. Like Christmas Day, I got home and I'm like, I really want this to be good. I was excited to watch it. And after 2.5 hours, I was like, that just wasn't good.
Yeah, it wasn't good. And
I can't say good things about it. The villain, I don't was just like so confusing. The finale, she won by just kind of talking him off the ledge.
Yeah.
Like anyone, a fucking hostage negotiator could have done that. There was no superpowers involved.
Well, and then we had to pigeonhole.
She wrote him a Hallmark card.
We had to shoehorn Cheetah in there because
that was kind of a good part, but I didn't really get it. But I liked Kristen Wiig for once. Like I'm not a Kristen Wiig fan, but I liked her in that. And it was like there was a brief moment when she first arrived and she was Kristen Wigging it, as I call it, where she was just kind of doing all the same stuff she's done in SNL and in Bridesmaids and in Ghostbusters. And I'm like, are we gonna have to do this for a whole movie? And then she
started evolving.
Then she flipped the switch, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. We're actually not gonna just do Chris. It was kind of like what I talked about with the Christmas Chronicles on our last episode, where they introduced the kid, and in the first 5 minutes, he had mentioned every allergy and Twitter and all that shit, and I'm just like, oh, we're just gonna do this, and then they stopped, and I'm like, okay, fine, I'm all in on the character, great.
Right.
I actually enjoyed Kristen Wiig in this movie, but Mandalorian, I was
Maxwell Lord was not great. But my biggest problem is it connects a lot of the issues that I have with the way DC is operated. We just sat and talked, and I'm not sure what the review for Ultron ultimately clocked in at, but we talked about
30-40 minutes now.
But we talked about how everything in Avengers Age of Ultron references things that we're going to see.
Yep.
That it's so planned and mapped out that this reference hits to that and talks to this and that and boom, 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 and we're off.
Yep.
Whereas Wonder Woman 1984, to me, we introduced Wonder Woman in the Batman vs Superman movie, and then it was just like, oh well, we should like everybody's like kind of expecting origin films for these people, so we should make an origin film for Wonder Woman.
Sure.
Oh well, we're gonna make the Wonder Woman origin film, and it's gonna be really good, but then we're gonna kneecap ourselves because at the end of the movie. At the end of the movie, she's basically going to be like, oh, well, this was the last time I was a hero until Batman versus Superman. And then it's just like, oh, so what are we going to do now? Because we can't do a sequel to the extremely popular movie that we just made because the sequel to it is Batman versus Superman. But then the sequel to that is the Justice League movie. And so we can't pigeonhole or like shoehorn in another one until after we do Justice League. You know what? Let's just make another movie. And we're going to set it in the 80s because everybody likes the 80s now, right? Sure, let's do that. Are we going to have a fun mall like shopping scene? No, she's going to fight in a mall once. Well, and then
without Duran Duran playing in the background.
Yeah.
Where was the music?
There was no music. There was no fun clothes. The only thing there is a fun, like tiny little montage with Steve Trevor, like trying on clothes that lasts 30 seconds. And then like a joke about art. And it's just like, oh, this is gross and terrible. And it's just like the way that they brought him back was the absolute worst because it's
so
not
short.
Actually him. It's not actually him. And so it's just like, I actually thought that was really funny when you said that the internet basically said that she raped that guy because she kind of did.
Like, I didn't get it. Like, was she, I still don't understand. Was she dreaming? What was happening? What was this movie?
So
what was this
movie? The movie is terrible, right? The movie is bad. And this is a poor piece of writing. So this guy shows up to this party and her dream on the wish stone or whatever, her dream on the wish stone was that Steve Trevor would come back. And it's just like, okay, that's fine. And so instead of just doing the easy thing, because fucking wish stone, they made a fucking 80-foot wall appear in the middle of Egypt somewhere. So it could have just been Steve Trevor. But no, instead what we had to do was have Steve Trevor's consciousness just like take over this guy.
Yeah.
And so then she's like talking to him, and I forget what the line references, but they reference a thing, and she goes, oh, it is you, Steve, and all I see is you. And so that's why it's Chris Pine the whole time, because she just sees him as Chris Pine.
So when we were looking at let's pretend this is reality for a second.
So in reality, we are looking at, like, let's just say John Smith, right? And then Gal Gadot. Right. And so that's what we're looking at. We're looking at John Smith and Wonder Woman.
Right.
And then what Wonder Woman is seeing is not John Smith. She's seeing Steve Trevor. And
so we were seeing through her eyes, but in reality, it was the other guy the whole time.
Correct.
And so was he like mind control zombie? What's happening here?
I think that he was just like his consciousness.
Because he shows up at the end. He shows up at the end as himself.
Yeah, because she renounces her wish and he turns back into that guy.
I'm so confused. Like this falls in line with kind of what we were talking about, how Vision got made, but Vision's a robotish thing.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Vision isn't a person.
It would have been easier for Steve Trevor to show up, be Steve Trevor, and then when she renounces her wish, and again, that moment wasn't powerful. Like, it wasn't this powerful moment.
No.
And like, while she's holding Steve Trevor, denouncing her wish, and then having Steve Trevor basically like Thanos snap away.
He just walked off.
She like walked off and was just like, I renounced my wish, and then he's just back to being that normal guy and doesn't have any idea what the fuck is going on. Also, let's talk about the jet. Let's talk about the magic fucking jet. Okay? They go and hijack this plane because they need to fly to Egypt. And
I didn't even know why they did that.
Because they had to find Maxwell Lord, and he was in Egypt, so they had to yada yada Egypt. And so they get in the jet, and this World War I pilot, World War I prop plane pilot, single stick engine fucking pilot.
I can fly anything.
Yeah, he's just like, oh, I fucking got this, and just starts flipping switches to turn on this plane. And it's just like, look, here's the deal. I don't need you to like be like, I've never seen a plane before, then have this like stupid conflict. It's just like, yeah, fucking learn how to fly the plane. That's fine, whatever.
Right.
You know what I mean? Let's just go to it. So he flies the plane, but it's undercut by the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my entire fucking life, where there's fireworks going off, and this asshole acts as if he's never seen fireworks before. And it's like, motherfucker, they were in the Ming Dynasty. What are you talking about? It is in the national anthem. They talk about fireworks in the national fucking anthem. Are you for real?
Oh shit.
God, I fucking hated that movie.
The travel in that movie kind of irked me because, especially in the ending, like one of my bigger problems, the ending,
Golden Eagle.
The ending was a massive problem. Like, and I didn't feel that we needed. God, I'm blanking on Mandalorian's name.
Maxwell Lord.
That's not his real name though. What's his name? The actor. Yes, yeah. Pedro Pascal. So I didn't think we needed him to have the father angle. I think that took away from the story, and then it really fucked up the ending because he's traveling all over the place, and his kid is supposedly in the office, but then all of a sudden his kid runs out of the office, and they're both in the same neighborhood in that field at the end, and I'm like, how did we all get here? Because it feels like he took a plane somewhere. This kid was still at the office.
He flew back.
But they ran at the end because Pascal just fucking leaves when Wonder Woman talks him down. He just walks out of the building, and there's the field, and there's your kid running across. It's like, how did we all get here? I feel like there was again, it was kind of like there was parts of like Batman's versus Superman that was like, I feel like we're missing parts of this story. I don't think it's going to make it better. And when the director's cut came out and I watched it, I'm like, okay, that part makes more sense, but that doesn't make this a better movie, which is why it's like, I'm going to watch Justice League Snyder Cut, but it's not going to make a better movie.
Well,
I mean, it might be a better movie this time around because they're literally reshooting the whole goddamn thing.
But they're actually finishing Zack Snyder's movie.
Right, which is just all right, fine. You know, it got, you know, again, we've mentioned it many times. Warner Brothers giving Zack Snyder $30 million to refinish Justice League has gotten us a director's cut of Rocky IV and Godfather 3. This is the world we live in now. Nobody's working, so the editors are just editing.
Right. And you're absolutely right. And it's like part of the problem with that character, like as a whole, was that I don't understand your motivation, right? Like the motivation is you just wanted more power, and it's just like, look,
like the bad guy in Hudson Hawk says, world domination.
Yeah, right. It's just like, look, here's the thing: is it's really shitty that the MCU keeps killing off their characters because they're three-dimensional, have character motivation, and are very in-depth, and I want to see more. Right. Maxwell Lord could have died at the end of that movie, and I wouldn't have thought more about him ever again. Whereas it's just like Ultron, it's just like, oh, I hope he's backed up on a hard drive somewhere, and some asshole accidentally boots him up to Google because.
So, right before I hit play on Wonder Woman, I was on Facebook, and somebody made a comment. They had already watched it, and they said something along the lines of, well, the best part of this is they blew up the Mandalorian's head. And I was, obviously they were lying. They were you know, trolling spoilers. But I'm watching the movie, and as the character, and I'm watching it because I knew nothing about this or what the hell he was doing, but as he's absorbing all these people's wishes and his head's bleeding, his nose is bleeding, and he's having all these weird seizures and stuff, I'm in the back of my mind, I remember that post, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be awesome at the end when his head explodes. And then it didn't happen. We got the ending we got, and all I'm sitting here being like, I wish his head exploded. You know what I mean? Like I wish that trolling spoiler actually was a real one this time. And
you were
like, actually got that.
You were like kind of Gordon Gekko, but not evil enough. And then it felt like we got to that ending, and then somebody at Warner Brothers was like, yeah, but she doesn't fight anybody. Oh, well, I guess we got to go rewrite this movie so that we put in a CGI fight scene.
I guess he's got to hug his kid at the end because I don't know what this. I don't know what this movie is. And we get the We get the end credit scene with Linda Carter coming back in a cutesy wink and nod, but I'm like, all right, that's a cutesy wink and nod. But
you were the what's it called? You were the Themysciran that like saved them from man. It's like, oh god, that's stupid. Like you, just pay attention. Just pay attention to what Marvel didn't do that.
Or just make good movies. Like that's all I'm saying. Like this, like even if you take this out of the muddled extended universe that DC doesn't have right now, and it was a standalone kind of want to have, but they can't really make up their minds because, like we said earlier, I guess there's going to be like 4 Batman stories simultaneously happening at this.
Yeah,
it's like
because all of that.
The
Flash thing is with Ben Affleck.
We got Affleck coming back for a little bit. We got Michael Keaton, who I guess is signing on for like more stuff. It sounds like that he's going to be the main Batman in this weird DCU thing. And then we got the Pattinson one, which I guess is just going to be standalone. It's not going to be part of the extended universe. We got Jared Leto coming back for Justice League as the Joker. It's like, oh, what are you guys fucking doing, man? Just make. Don't try to be Marvel. Because as we discussed for
this is the
better part
They're
of the
trying
show,
so hard not to, and like that's the problem.
It's like don't stop trying to be Marvel and just go make movies. Just go make a good movie. Like and to, I guess to put a ribbon on it because we've done almost as long on Wonder Woman as we did on Avengers.
Yeah, people like when we shit on movies.
That we had to. That was the thing. Like when I suggested let's do Age of Ultron.
Oh, it's gonna be bad.
I remember it as one of the less, like you said, it was one of the lesser ones. And I'm sitting there watching like, this movie is great. And I want to watch the rest of these movies now. Yeah. But yeah, we had to shit on something. Something that came out when I made my comment on Facebook about Wonder Woman 84 being bad. A lot of the things, even my brother sent me a text because, he watched it and felt the same way. A lot of the things were circling around Patty Jenkins having Rogue Squadron. She's going to write and direct the Star Wars movie. And people are like, oh, cool. She's going to ruin it. And I'm just like, First of all, we got 3 years to the projected date. That could even be moved. Second of all, Star Wars is getting their footing. And they're not going to fuck it up. Like if things are going off the rails, of all the companies, the Lucasfilm side of Disney has no problem firing a director and bringing somebody else in.
Well, look at what happened. Look at what happened with the assholes with Game of Thrones. The showrunners for Game of Thrones were gonna like.
Ryan Johnson was supposed to have his own trilogy. They fired whoever was doing Rise of Skywalker. Brought JJ back. That's how we got Ron Howard on Solo. So first of all, replacing directors is not an uncommon thing at Disney. But also, I'm not worried. We got 3 years.
She's good at what she does.
And she's a good director. Like, she's a good filmmaker. Like, I like her movie. And I liked the first Wonder Woman. This movie just wasn't good. Like, they all can't be winners, I guess.
The problem with Wonder Woman, none of the the performances weren't bad. Pedro Pascal did a good job in the part that he was given.
Yeah.
Like, Kristen Wiig did a good job at the part she was given.
Right.
The cinematography was very good in a movie, especially when you have these like CGI fight action scenes. It's very easy for these things to get muddled and like very shaky, but everything was
as good as it was. Black Panther the CGI looked terrible.
Right.
As good as the movie was, Black Panther's CGI was awful.
Right. And so like everything about the movie like should have worked.
They had all the pieces. They just didn't know how to put it together.
It was just, that one most important piece that's story. You know what I mean? It's like they built a really, really nice car, but then forgot the fucking engine.
Hey, it looks good.
It looks great. Like everything about this looks top notch, but it doesn't drive.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I definitely, like I said when we started talking about this, I really would have preferred if they, especially because as you said, they couldn't do sequels because of the way they set up Batman vs Superman, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're gonna do Wonder Woman prequels, like I said, the opening 10 minutes was awesome.
Yeah.
Like young Diana doing that obstacle course with was it Connie Nielsen and Robin Wright, and it's like that shit was awesome. Like I could have done 2 hours of that. Like,
and I don't understand.
Show me her progression.
What the life lesson she was supposed to have was.
I don't know. We keep getting glimmers and glimpses of this world and these characters, but they haven't. It's almost like they're fleshing them out in 10-minute intervals.
Yeah.
It's like they're basically like what was that that streaming service that lasted for 10 minutes.
Tubi?
Tubi. Roku, I guess, just bought it for like $1 billion. So they're going to put that in. But it was like that. Their whole gimmick was it was a streaming service that only did like 10-minute shows, like 10-minute episodes of shows type of thing. And that's what we're getting with the Wonder Woman origin story, the stuff that we want to see. You know, all the goddesses up on their planet or whatever the hell that is. That's the shit I want to see.
Right.
Instead of, I don't know, not 80s with Chris Pine.
Not 80s.
Not enough 80s for the 80s, man.
Awful.
So
Awful.
I guess the main bullet point is Marvel's still great and DC still has work to do.
Yeah.
Nice way to put it.
That's exactly what that means.
We haven't discussed next week.
We haven't.
What are we going to do next week, Eddie? Thoughts and comments.
I guess as we muse about this, and I'm going to pull up HBO Max because I've been loving HBO Max recently.
Yep.
They've been absolutely fantastic. If you don't have it,
you
absolutely should, because they're
and
fantastic.
I was super thrilled that it got added to Roku right before the whole Wonder Woman thing.
Yeah,
so I can actually watch it on my TV now.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, you know what's? Have you seen Ready Player One?
I saw that in 4D.
You saw that in 4D. I've never seen it.
Back when we could go to movie theaters.
Yeah,
let's do that one.
Okay, let's do that.
Because that you know, the 80s we didn't get with Wonder Woman, we'll definitely get with this one.
Yeah, of course.
A movie not set in the 80s. Yeah. All right, so next week on That Movie Show, Ready Player One. Thank you for joining us, Mike Wendt, Eddie McCabe. Follow us on social media at Mike Wendt, at the Eddie McCabe, on all forms of social media: TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, etc., etc. Follow the show. Thatmovieshow.net is the website. We are on every and all podcasting apps. So whatever your favorite one is, hit subscribe, hit a like, hit a whatever, hit all the buttons, hit all the fucking buttons, man. And give the Facebook page a like. It's facebook.com/thatmovieshowtv. And we will see you back here next week for Ready Player One.
Bye, everybody.
That's Hooey Valley, Hooey Hollywood, where any office boy or young